Hello and welcome to Stockton Junction. For today's video we're going to be looking at a weathering project that I'm doing, and so it's going to be on the EWS wagons. And what I'm going to do is, this is a standard wagon straight from the box. I'm going to show you how I turned this into that. So obviously you can see it's a lot better looking than the standard out the box model. It looks too new. And then I'm going to also show you how I went to the next stage with the loads inside the wagons as well. So to create this nice scrap metal train. So first of all, the first things we're going to need, I'll just go through a list of the things I'm going to be using for this project. So waterborne thinners I'll be using later on for the airbrushing. That's the thinners that go well with the rail match acrylics, which I'll be using just for weathering the bottoms of the locos. I'm going to be using the Humbrol matte coat and some weathering powders, which is the dark earth, the rust, iron oxide and smoke. I've actually got one missing. I should have a white one as well. I don't know where that's gone. Metal slag. The other one is a MIG pigment. It's concrete powder. But I haven't got that here. I'll grab that in a minute. So that's what we will be using to do the project. So we'll move on to the first stage and I'll be back with you shortly. Right, I'm back now and we're ready for the first stage of the weathering project. That was the concrete pigment, which I'm going to use as well. Just like that. So the first thing we need to do is to varnish our models with the Humbrol matte coat. This stage has to be done. The weathering pigments will not. These weathering pigments will not stick to this shiny surface. We need to get rid of that completely. So you've got two options. You could spray them with varnish. I could actually put varnish in my air gun and do it, but I found that the Humbrol matte coat is the best one to go with these powders. So as I said before on another previous video, when you're doing this stuff, it gets really thick and gloopy at the bottom of the bottle. You need to mix it, stir it up until it's fully all dissolved and one consistency all the way through. Otherwise you don't get the matte sheen off of it. So the first thing literally we're just going to do is give the whole thing a complete coat in this. It does take a couple of minutes, it doesn't take that long. I'm going to give these a coat. The other thing I actually forgot to do, which I should have just done before we start that, is take the wheels out. We do need to take the wheels out before we complete that, so we can do that. It's another stage that we'll be doing while these are drying. So take those out. I'll do the other wagon as well. Obviously I've only got 2 wagons left to complete. I've got 3 at the moment that are completed, 2 that are weathered and 2 to be weathered. So that's all of the wheels out. We'll come back to those in a short while, and I'll just carry on this. So obviously try not to leave loads of lumps, although that actually doesn't matter. I'm going to give the bogies a little bit of a matte coat. All of these under edges here all need to have it on. Anywhere that you want to put weathering. One side done already. I'm not actually bothered if I get any small lumps on it, just purely because they'll end up looking more like clumps of rust or something if I get any lumps, but I am mainly trying to give it a smooth coat. Though this stuff does dry very well, so it's pretty good. But as you can see, I'm literally just slapping it on there. Doesn't take long. Let's get all the under edges. That edge there can be seen when the wagon's on its side. So we'll leave that to dry. So I'll do the same with the other one. I'm not going to do that on camera. I'll do that in a minute. So the next stage, find my pegs, and I've lost my pegs. Hang on, actually I know where they are. There we go. So the next stage of this is to paint the wheels. So what we do is, using close pegs like that, I haven't got enough for all 8, but I can do one. I've got 5. So we put these in here, and what I would do here is, with the either the sleeper grime or the frame dirt, whichever one you choose to use, I think I'm going to do is I'm going to use the sleeper grime for this one. So we're going to just literally paint that edge of the wheel, bearing in mind we don't need to go right to the centre, because that will be covered with the hub of the bogie where it attaches. So really all you need to do is that outside edge like that. Leave those to dry, simple as. They'll be left now. I'm just going to do a couple more quickly. They'll be left until till they're fully dried. We'll come over and recheck them, make sure that there's no bits that just need a touch up, whether it's missing some paint and the metal's showing through. And although that doesn't matter if there's a little bit, because you can always weather them again. I'm literally just going to do so. It's 4 done. This is how quick it is. It doesn't take long at all. And also obviously try not to get any paint on this little pin here, because if you do, when you go to put it back into the bogie, it will stick on the inside where it's thicker. Eventually it will wear away, but you may have some issues with the wheel sticking. So, and also you don't need to do this outer edge here. I'll just do the flat front facing. So I'll do is I'll do the other 3 wheels and just leave them on the side while so that they're done for later. So the next stage is we've just got to wait for this to dry. So I shall leave you while I paint the other one up with the Humbrol matte coat, and I'll come back shortly. Right, so the outsides are pretty much dry. The one thing I forgot to mention was to varnish this top edge and these inside edges as well. If you're planning on to put loads in, you don't need to go right to the bottom. If you wanted one completely empty, obviously varnish completely inside. So the first stage I'm going to go through is start layering the powders on. Now what I have got is these brushes. These were old brushes that were pretty bad. I cut them off flat and they become what I call stippling brushes, which are great for dry brushing, but they're also good for laying on powders. So I'm going to use the biggest one to start with. We're going to start work with the dark earth colour, and basically going to do the whole bottom half of the whole wagon. So you just tap it into the powders, get it on there. I'm not going to be shy about this. The one thing you'll notice later on when we go to revarnish the model is that it will tone down. A lot of the colour that's on there will be toned down with the varnish. So I'm going to get some on the frames, all underneath, basically the whole bottom half of the wagon. Tap it off the excess if you want to. I'm going to do all the ends. Obviously you don't have to just stick to exactly the same level. Yeah, you can make it wavy to make different effect. If it had a dead straight line all the way down it, it would look a bit odd. But we're going to be adding other colours anyway, so to be honest, it's not going to matter too much. Break that all up later anyway. So that's the bottom half of that one done. I'm just going to quickly do the other one so that I can work on both at the same time. Doesn't take long. Literally just chucking it on. Not being shy about it, that's one thing. Don't be scared to lay it, chuck it on there. At this point, if you wanted to take it off, it would come off quite easily, because we haven't obviously varnished it on to seal it on. So you don't need to be too scared about chucking it on there. But these wagons obviously were used for various different things, but they were used for scrap metal, so they wouldn't have been cleaned regularly, they wouldn't have been well looked after, they would have been beaten up, bashed around. So the one thing I do want to replicate is the fact that they look old, used and worn. So that's the black on there. I'm just going to tap off the excess dust. This is a very messy job, this is hence why I'm doing it on this board. So the next job is to go for the black. Now at this point all I do is just give the brush a quick wipe off just to get the excess off. It doesn't really matter because the black will blend in with it anyway, so it doesn't matter. But we're going to pretty much do the same thing on the top half. Just chuck that black on there, get some around these edges. And obviously if you want to, you can just add some bits of darker tone to the brown by rubbing a bit of the black into it. You don't have to do that. So now we've got the two tones in place. You just need to go round that top edge. What I did forget to do was start doing the inside. So just going to go back to some of the brown. Might need a bit more of this. I'm running low already. Although the one thing you can do is where it's on the board like that, you can sweep up the excess, dab it, and reuse it, no problem. That's the inside of that one done. Just going to do a bit on this one quickly. You can see how quickly you can work on these. You can get a whole fleet of wagons probably done up in a couple of hours. Obviously not including drying times. It's pretty hot up in the loft at the moment. I think it's about 28, 29 degrees, so obviously it's drying pretty quickly, which is good for the time. If it looks a bit too dull or too bright, because this is quite a bright colour on this top edge, and I really want that toned right down. So a bit more of the brown on that. So it's looking pretty good already. Next stage, so I'm going to discard that brush now because we've already used the brown and the black with that one. Next stage is I'm going to use some of the concrete because I couldn't get any white, but the concrete actually works really well anyway. It's so what we're going to do is just various places, and what we're actually doing here is we're not trying to make it white, we're trying to blend some of the colour, tone out some of the colours, make some of the bits of black more grey. Doesn't matter if you leave a few white bits on there though, that looks quite good. And the other thing is, show you the wagon that I did earlier, you can't really see any of that white showing up on there, but it was like this before I varnished it, so it will tone down a lot with the varnish, so don't be afraid to actually go a bit over. It might look a bit much at the moment, but it won't be. So I'm going to go up and down like this to blend. I want to make that look a bit scratched up there, like that. I quite like that effect. It works pretty good. Just chuck a bit on there. You don't have to use a lot of white on all of it. And the other thing is obviously where you're going to maybe get better effect on one side than the other, you can have it choose which side. Once it's dried, you can choose which side you probably prefer to have on the running side. That's pretty much what I was looking for. What I'm going to trial out is that one's pretty normal. On this one, because obviously like I said it tones down quite a lot, I'm going to actually use a lot more of this colour on it to see how it comes out as a trial. I want it to be a bit lighter. And as you can see, I'm doing downward motion streaks on it, which would starting from the top, working to about 3/4 of the way down. I'm not actually going all the way to the bottom. I'm lifting it up before I get there. Just blow the excess off. This one's got a slightly, it's hard to see it, more of a streaked downwards look to it. I don't know if you can see that on the camera. So if I put that there, you can see there it's more streaked, whereas this one's more just a blended. Like I said, this lot will tone down with the varnish, so don't worry about how it looks at the moment. It will look a lot less bright when it's finished off. I like this effect, so I'm going to continue with some of this. Do these two ends. So layer it on sideways to get a nice even coverage on just on the top half, and then again, like I said, streak downwards. I'm leaving a few little bits of streak, so I'm not brushing every single bit. Like there, I've just left a few bits. I'll layer a little bit more on here. Blow off the excess. I'll just have a quick look, see if there's any lump. I don't want too many bits right in these edges of the white or of this colour. I'm quite happy with that. I think that side looks much better though, so that'll probably be the side that gets used. Right, so we're done with the white, and now if you want to, this is obviously totally, the next stage is up to you. We've got the two rust colours. So we have the rust and the iron oxide. I've got more to do on the insides of them, but I'm going to wait and do that. I'm going to use the darker rust colour first, just a few patches, not everywhere. Get a little bit on the handle. And especially on these lower edges down here, we definitely want the rust on the undercarriage. So we've got that main colour on. I'm going to go for the lighter one now. I'm just going to dab a few bits on like that. Literally more dabbing motion than rubbing on this bit. Just want to layer a few spots. We're not worried if the powder's sticking up a bit, because that actually makes it look more like proper rust. If you wanted, you could add a bit elsewhere on the model, so maybe we'll put a bit up here, like so. But what I should have done really is gone round done all this side before I did the lighter. Obviously I'm using the smaller brushes for the rust application, just purely because it gives a finer application, so you don't overdo the rust, because you don't want tons and tons of it unless you were doing a load of really rusty old ore wagons or something. I'm quite happy with that. I'm just going to add some light touches along there. Bit down the ladders. And that one is finished. Just got the inside to finish off, so I just quickly obviously, if you wanted, you could use your finger and rub it in, or a bit of one of those applicators that women use for makeup, those with the sponge head. They're quite good for that. I'm happy with the way this is looking, so I'm not going to do that. Done with that one. It's time to get a little bit on this sort of hatch area. If you've got excess you don't want, just blow it off very gently. And I want it to just a bit up this top. That's it's looking pretty rusty. Just going to tone down some of the white on that bit there with a bit of the rust. That's the thing, you can always tone, if you've gone a bit light you can always go back over with the darker colours. Right, and I'm happy with that now. So they're done, and your hands get black. It's a messy job, but the next job obviously is to clear up the decks, because we need to spray these to seal the powders in place if you're happy with the effects you've got. Which it is a little tricky though, because obviously where the colours go darker, when you spray it, you're not really quite going to be sure how it's going to finally look, but you get an idea. So we're going to move these aside, and I'm going to clear this up, and I'll be back with you shortly for the spraying. Right, so I'm back using the Humbrol acrylic varnish as it's Humbrol sprays. One problem I've got is my can's nearly empty, so I'm going to have to be pretty good with this. So I've done, all we want is to get it wet. We do not need a lot. I'm using my turntable because I can do multiple sides at the same time. Gonna have to turn it up. And hope that we have just enough in there. And I think we will. We need to get some on the inside though. It's nearly gone. So I've run out of the acrylic varnish, but you get the idea of what needs to be done next. And I will have to mix up some varnish to go in my air gun, or hope I've got another can of matte varnish somewhere laying around. So I'll be back shortly because the inside still need to be sealed. The only problem I have found with this varnish is you get those white little patches there sometimes. That's not a problem because we can always, that always will come off, as I've found. So as you can see, they've already toned right down pretty much almost to how the other models are. I'll be back with you very shortly for the next stage after I've finished that, but what I'll do is I'll just quickly show you. So I'm going to obviously put loads into these wagons, as you can see. So what I've done is I've made these blocks up. These blocks are just some card blocks, and I will literally just super glue that into there to half fill the wagon, and that means that when we put our loads in, we're not wasting tons of good material, because obviously stuff like that's not dirt cheap and we want it to go as far as possible. So card is cheap, so I made these blocks up. I think it's 1mm card. I think there's 7 or 8 thicknesses all stuck together. and as you can see on that one, it doesn't quite go to the ends, it doesn't really go to the edges. That's fine, it doesn't matter, because we want some of the glue later when we do glue it to be able to seep down into that, and it also gives it a good hold, because the way that we're going to be doing sealing the interior into there is going to be a lot of glue. It's going to be like ballasting almost, so we're going to need a little bit of somewhere to run off, and it will soak into the card as well, because obviously there's going to be a bit of water in it, but we'll go into that when we get onto that stage, so I'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back, and as you can see, that's how the wagons are looking now that the initial matte varnish has dried. It's not looking quite as bright as previously. Obviously the colours are more subdued, which blends in a little bit better. So obviously if you want slightly more colour, then obviously add more of the tones, as you can see what they look like beforehand, and how the varnish has changed and dulled that down. So the next stage I'm going to do is using the airbrush. I just want to give it a bit of dirt weathering along the bottom edges, so I should do that. And I'll just put my camera down so I can film as I do it. So for this, I'm going to use the sleeper grime paint. I did have frame dirt, but the sleeper grime is obviously the same color as the lighter bit on my track work, which you can see on, sorry, yeah, I'll show you. So this is the sleeper grime color, this lighter muddy brown, but the frame dirt, which I was going to use, is actually darker, and because these are quite a dark liveried vehicle, I didn't want to use the darker color because it might not stand out. So I'm just gonna have a quick, I'm going to switch the airbrush on. But what I'll also let you know is I'm using the waterborne thinners, that one, along with the rail match sleeper grime, and I've mixed it to about a 50-50 consistency, and I'm just going to obviously have a test spray before I put onto the vehicle to make sure that it's that looks pretty good to me. So just move this one out of the way for a minute. I've got it lent here like this, just so that it gives me a good angle to get the bottom and edge of the underside. And when you do spray, obviously one complete motion, don't try and stop on the way, and that's all I want, is a couple of quick passes. It's not going to be an awful lot. And spin it round. Ooh. And that's all I want on that one. Move this. Of course, as I've mixed up quite a bit of this, what I'm going to do is I've also got a whole load of other wagons and coaches out, so while I'm doing one lot, I might as well save having to clean the airbrush another time. I'll do a whole batch of things at the same time, as I want all of my rolling stock weathered. So this is a new coach I've just received a little recently, and on want it quite dirty, this one, because it's a departmental wagon anyway. I should do some of the tones on the roof later on, next time I'm doing the track weathering and I've got the other grey out. Anyway, you can see how I'm doing. It's just a quick pass, nothing too much. Obviously when it dries, it will dry a bit different colour shade, so we'll see that on the next part of the video later on. So that's all of those wagons done for now. I've got 2 more of those wagons due to come soon, but while I'm doing it, here is my new Class 66 that's going to go with those wagons. And it's not been run yet. It's a DCC sound. I just want to give the bottom bogies, they're quite shiny. Just want to tone that down a bit. May go over with some other shades, a bit of stuff, but obviously less is more sometimes, so we don't want to overdo this. Obviously as it dries it will get a bit more toning. I may use a bit of the frame dirt as well to mix in the shades of colours. I'll wait and see how this dries first, so leave that for now, and I'm just going to finish off doing a few more coaches, etc., and I'll come back to you later on with the next part of the video. So I'll see you soon. Right, so I did the previous airbrushing video, the last section, before I did the weathering on these last 2 wagons. What I have done is I've redone the weathering down here with the frame dirt rather than the sleeper grime. I think it looks slightly better. If you haven't got a spray gun, I believe you can buy these in aerosol cans, but I would make one suggestion, and that's obviously to use a card template across there so that you don't overspray, because with the spray cans they are a lot more wider and you would end up covering the whole thing and it just ruin it. But I much prefer the air gun. I wouldn't use a spray can myself, but obviously there are some people out there that don't want to purchase an air gun for just an airbrush, sorry, for just a few odd little jobs. I find mine's invaluable. I use it for loads of things. Anyway, so now we're moving on to putting the loads into these. As I said previously, I've got these card things. This one was stuck in previously. I've just done this one. All we're going to do, a bit of super glue, and I buy these from Poundland. They come with these little applicator nozzles, brilliant. So just going to do a little bit of super glue in there. I want that to be rock solid. These are not going to be coming out, and nor are the loads that I'm putting in them. So they're in for life. So those I need to, obviously they'll be dry in a couple of minutes, but we'll work on this one. So what I've got is a selection of products from Goodwood Scenics, I believe it was. Obviously I believe it was Goodwood Scenics. I can't find the packaging right now, but oh yes, here we go. Here we go. So yes, goodwoodscenics.co.uk. They sell on eBay as well, which is where I bought mine from. I bought 5 of their products, 6 of their products, sorry. So we've got the large grade scrap metal. I've got which is this one. I've got the finer one as well. Sorry. So we're going to use a mixture of the two in there. I bought the corrugated scraps. You get quite a few. I put them into these tubs myself. They come in bags. The girders and two sizes of pipes. So I think these were the 8mm and I can't remember. I think these were 4mm. I'm not 100% sure. Just have a look. See if I've still got the card. Yes, I have. So yes, so it's the 4mm rusty pipes and the 8mm rusty pipes, and it's the large grade and the fine grade that I'm using. For the wagon that's got the wheel sets in, they do sell the rusty done wheels, but I've I did my own. They're pretty easy to do. In fact, I will do a very quick video on how to make rusty old wheels on another video very shortly, because it literally takes 5 minutes. It's so quick and easy to do, and we'll leave that for now. So just to let you know, when you buy that, I bought the medium sized pack. This isn't all of it. I've got another big bag of it, so I have got a lot more of these products. I can't even see the bag. I keep putting things down and losing them as usual. Anyway, so what we're going to do, obviously, like I said, I put these in to save on materials, and you can do it any way you want. I'm just going to put it over the tub, and the first thing we're going to do is just fill it up with not completely fill it up, but we're going to put in a large amount of the larger grade, because that will bulk it out. I'm going to leave a bit of space in there, and then put in what you want, basically. Put a few bits of this in. I'm going to put, for this one, I'm going to put one of these big pipes. You get one like that with an end piece. I'm going to put that in, I think there, like that. Maybe put another one in next to it. And I think this one will have not so many pipes, and maybe lots of girders in there, just to make it look a bit different. So, and now we're going to use some of the fine, and what I want to do here is literally just fill in around the edges of some of these bigger bits. But what I don't want is what you've just seen there. I don't want all of this on here, so we'll brush that off. Also, it helps just to blend in, but this is more of a fine filler, so we'll still use some of the bigger bits, but what I'm trying to do is get some of this around the edges of these bits, so that when the glue sets, it really has something to hold on to against the larger items, so that they don't all come out. And if you want to, you could always put a few of the bigger bits on the top, just a couple here and there just to make it look. And that is it. That is loaded. That load is done. Now comes the interesting bit. So what I would do is, I'm not going to do all 3 of these or all 4 of these in front of you. That will just take too long for the video. So we'll move on to the next stage. I've got these sticks here to stop it rolling, because obviously this one's still got its wheels. So the next stage, I'll just move my bits out of the way, is we're going to use PVA mix. Now I have this big Dow Egberts jar, which is labelled up on the top. It's 50/50 with my favourite product, Mod Podge Matte, because it dries matte colour. You won't get any gloss sheen off of it, which is the last thing you want when you've spent all this time making a model look old, realistic and not shiny. The last thing you want is all the that to look shiny. So 50% Mod Podge, 50% water. But in this big jar I put 4 drops of washing up liquid. So we'll get that open. The next thing we're going to need, I'll just grab that. Is a pipette, like so, and some isopropyl 70% alcohol. I haven't got the actual proper bottle. What I do is, I've got a little sprayer, which was an old thing. I bought it in Asda's, I think, with hair product in. Tipped away the product, rinsed it, cleaned it, and I use this for the isopropyl, which is what I use when I'm doing ballasting or jobs like this. I'll try and move some of this and set up the camera at a slightly better angle, just because it's very hard to see. So what we're going to be doing, I'll put that there, is we've got our glue and our pipette. So I'm going to, first off, I'm just going to fill the pipette with glue ready. So that's ready to go. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to spray with the isopropyl a very decent, generous amount into there, being gentle to start with, because obviously you don't want it to disturb all the thing. And the reason we're doing this is the same as ballasting. It stops it all. It helps the PVA to soak straight in, as you can see, instead of just sitting on the top. If we were to do this without the isopropyl, it would just literally pool on the top, whereas this, now this does take quite a bit of glue, the way I do it, but I want this load fixed in really well. I do not want it all coming apart, breaking up. So I'm literally just going to keep putting this in until you see the glue level come right up to the, almost to the top, or to the lower edge of where you can see your scrap metal. It's like ballasting, really. I don't know if you've ever done ballasting and then you find that after it's dried you've got a whole load that's loose still. That's just because there wasn't enough glue in it. You didn't soak it quite well enough. It does happen. Happens to me quite regularly. I tried to be more sparing and then end up doing it the opposite way. So don't worry about the glue on the top there, on those girders. That will disappear in a minute with the next part. So I think we're nearly there. Yeah, I can see the glue starting to come up in that corner. It does take a fair bit, but it'll be worth it. I think that will do. Just going to use a piece of tissue paper quickly, just to block, don't rub, but just to block that edge. Make sure there's no glue down the, let's run down the sides. And the last thing I'm going to do quickly is over these girders, I'm just going to spray them with the isopropyl. Oh, don't want to do that. I think I might have needed a bit more of the fine stuff in there to hold that. I mean, it'll probably glue solid, but I'm going to do a little bit here, just to make it look like they're buried in there, just to make sure they don't come off. So another gentle spray of that. Do need to be gentle because it will move otherwise. I'm just going to give that bit on the top a soak. And that glue should pretty much go clear, it'll go matte clear on top of there anyway. So basically this is exactly what I did with the others. So we're going to leave this now to dry. I left mine in on a windowsill in the sun for the last few hours of its drying process, and it went really well. I'm going to actually just leave these in the loft because it's so hot up here. It won't have direct sunlight, but the heat will cure that off pretty well, pretty quickly, and it'll be like this. And trust me, these bits, as you can see, are not moving. It moves the whole wagon. And I'll tell you what, this wagon is pretty heavy as well because of these pieces of rod. These metal piping are real metal. They add a nice decent bit of weight to these wagons. I don't know about everyone else, but I do like wagons that have got some weight to them. It keeps them on the rails, stops derailments a lot more, in my opinion. Anyway, that's pretty much it. So we just got to wait for this to dry, and it will be like that. It could take up to 2 days though, so please just don't, you know, rush it. Just give it a couple of days before you start touching it, messing about with it, and I think you'll be impressed with the results. So what I'll do is I'll leave the video there. Once I've got all the wagons finished and they've dried, I'll do a quick video just to show you all of them with the train, just so you can see the final result. But I think you'll be impressed how easy it is to do this if you want to have a go at it yourself. Anyway, thank you for watching, and until next time, goodbye.